Like every time somebody walks away from the screen, I'm just like, bye, Felicia.
A modern podcast where Chris and Mike talk about TV, movies, superheroes, and everything in between. It's time for Superhero Slate.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Superhero Slate, the show where we run down the latest superhero entertainment news.
We love TV, movies, and superheroes, so let's talk it all out.
My name is Chris Dillard.
And my name's Mike Royer.
And this is a super special spoiler cast for Daredevil Season 2.
Whoa, yeah.
Yes, so as always, there are spoilers in this, so don't be surprised if we tell you what happens.
Exactly. We're going to be talking about everything. We've given listeners a good solid week to catch up on the show. I believe you definitely needed that too, Chris.
I did. I finished episode 13 at 11:50 a.m. and we started recording at 12. So
in context,
I was
this
down
is
to the wire.
10 minutes fresh.
Yeah.
That'll be kind of good. I've had about 5 days to sit on it, and you just got out of the experience, so that'll be kind of cool. You'll have some fresher things in your brain, so that'll be good.
Yeah, it's definitely the longest I've taken to watch one of these Marvel Netflix shows, and I think we'll talk about it later, but why I kind of maybe think that's beneficial in the long run for me to do that. So, but I also want to set some expectations. We're not going to talk about them episode by episode. We're going to talk about the series as a general.
Yeah, that'd be too much.
And so if you've seen only half the show, we will probably talk about things that happened in the other half. So don't come back when you're done. We'll still be here. We're not going anywhere. This podcast will sit there until you're ready.
Yeah, exactly.
We're waiting on you.
No expiration date on these.
Yes. So I'm ready. You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. Let's get into it.
All right. This is fresh on my mind. So first initial reactions. I love Daredevil Season 2. I honestly kind of hold it above Jessica Jones, and everyone knows I love Jessica Jones more than Season 1 of Daredevil.
Yeah. That's what I was kind of waiting to hear, just because we didn't necessarily clash, I would say, but you were kind of the Jessica Jones side of things, and I was the Daredevil side of things, and you've come back over to my side now.
Well, I wouldn't say that's not as cut and dry. I think the first season of Daredevil is very episodic, and that's kind of where I thought Jessica Jones benefited from it, being a 13-hour movie, so to speak. And I think they combine those two in the best possible fashion for Daredevil Season 2. Because every episode ended on a cliffhanger. They left you coming back for more this time around. And a lot of those picked up right where it left off, but it didn't feel it wasn't just over one day like Jessica Jones was, like a long weekend. If this one felt like it took several weeks or months even to get to where we were.
Yeah, I believe towards the end of the series, or the end of the season, there was snow, and it was Christmas time.
Yeah, it was Christmas.
And whenever they add in holidays or snow or weather changes to a show, I'm just okay, how long did this take? I couldn't really think of if they mentioned any other dates or times at the beginning of the show, but I assume if they're showing a season change, this kind of did take place over a decent chunk of time.
At the beginning, they mentioned how hot it was in the law office because they didn't have any air conditioning, so it was in the middle of the summer when it started, and it took about 6 months to get to the end of the show, depending on the time jump there at the end. But I think coming at the best Christmas present in the world is finding out who Daredevil is. That was a good way to end. I think something I really enjoyed about this story of this is it was much more diverse in the first season. Meaning we had the hand ninjas. I mean, it all came back to the hand ninjas, but there were different paths we were going down. The Frank Castle route was one version, and then the ninjas and Elektra and all that fun stuff, which kind of brings me to the point that all these extra characters in this show made it feel that much more alive.
Yeah.
And kept my attention that much longer.
Yeah, there's a really interesting point in this season, which is something that almost made it feel like a mid-season finale. Just the way they structured out the story. I believe it's the end of episode 4. It's you're watching Daredevil, and you're getting into the groove of binge watching. You know you're going to be digesting 13 hours of this show over in just a couple of days. And then at the end of episode 4, it gets kind of interesting because they totally wrap up the Punisher plot, and then at the very tagline of the end of the episode, Elektra's revealed. So then you're really curious, like, oh, what's happening here? Like, there's no way we only get 4 episodes of the Punisher. We never even saw him in his iconic Punisher garb, if you will. So Elektra pops up, and then like it's really curious. So I would imagine if anybody out there has any sort of patience to watch it week by week, like I don't know how anyone could even manage that because the show's so good. It would be kind of interesting going from episode 4 and like waiting a week if this was a typical TV show platform, and then waiting to see what's going to happen. But yeah, it was really cool how they weaved the Punisher basically through the season, where he kind of wasn't necessarily a threat anymore. He was just basically standing trial, and it was up to the lawyers to basically help him. I thought that was really cool. There is one thing, and I don't know. No, I'll save it because I don't have very many negative things to say about this. But one negative thing is in that area. But I think I'll save it when we both start talking about that. But overall, yeah, this season was great. It gave me more of season 1, which is what I wanted. I was a big fan of season 1, so it felt like I was just right back into that world that I loved. Like it starts off with Matt Murdock right away into his new Daredevil costume, which is great. Even though like I really liked his old like handmade ninja costume. I actually had no problem when I rewatched season 1. Like I wasn't like just waiting for him to get the costume. I was like, come on, get the costume already. I was just like, you know what, it's really cool because they build the show in such a way that it doesn't really matter like what costume he's in. He's kicking ass no matter what. So yeah, season 2 is great. Yeah,
totally. I would probably give it the same score I would give if I was to score them, the same as I would give Jessica Jones. But maybe just a point, like a 0.1 higher, I think. And I think it comes down to like the action scenes in Daredevil, like something you really enjoyed. That Daredevil season 1 was an action series, and Jessica Jones wasn't. But they took the action to a new level in this show. Around because of all the ninjas and Elektra and Stick. Stick got more screen time, which was fantastic. I really love to see him. I was texting earlier that I really enjoy Stick as a whole because he's just devil may care attitude. So did you see the new quote unquote hallway fight scene in this one?
Yes, I did, and I was actually kind of on the lookout for it because we were kind of told ahead of time that we were going to be getting something like that again. So yeah, my eagle eye was anticipating it for sure.
So I'm going to have to say I'm not as impressed with this one as I was the last one.
Okay, so I think we're on the same page then.
Because mostly I saw the editing tricks more this time.
It
was very blatant. It wasn't one big cut.
Yeah, and I was surprised they went that way, honestly, just because that was the biggest gem that was shouted across the lands in season 1 was you gotta see this no-cut hallway fight. It's intense, it's brutal. Just imagine the amount of choreography it took. Like, oh, it's amazing, it's so good. And so everybody knew about it. And they specifically wanted people to know that it was one cut. So people went back and watched it. Well, I think just that section was uploaded to YouTube over and over again.
Well, I have to be honest, that actually isn't one cut on the first one. They never said that.
It isn't?
No, they never said that.
It looks exactly like it. So whether it is or isn't, technically it looks like one.
Exactly. They did a better job hiding it.
Yeah, I guess long shot, I guess is what they're saying. But either way, in this one, it is cool because Daredevil has that awesome like chain whip, and that was so rad.
Yes.
Whoever idea that was to have that chain attached to him and him fighting, I was totally on board. That was super sick. So I was watching that the whole time, super enjoying it. But yeah, they didn't as eloquently hide the cuts.
Yeah,
and I kind of knew this was going to happen when we were talking about Daredevil. Is like I was like, okay, we try our best to kind of bury the lead with each other over the weeks before we record these, because we kind of like going into these spoiler casts kind of not knowing how we feel, because it makes it a little bit more fun for us. But I knew that this was going to be overall positive for us. So when it comes to any sort of negatives to this, it's going to be kind of nitpicking. But
yeah,
it does kind of seem like a nitpick. But yeah, it just doesn't seem as special.
I think in the scheme of the whole show, that fight is, I mean, it's good, it's cool, it's innovative. I'll give him that. But whenever you come to the end, when he's fighting the ninjas more and more, and Elektra and Nobu again, I think that was handled much better than fights in the first season. And I think that to me, that shines and feels more real than that scene did, because of those obvious, like, oh, he walked in front of the camera, we're gonna cut here, make it look like the movement's still the same thing. So that's where I come in. You're right, it's nitpicking. It didn't ruin the show for me. I just I can't say that is better than the first season on that.
Yeah,
I can regard.
I can definitely say I don't think they should try to mimic it again for season 3.
Yeah,
because I feel like, you know, it's just like, oh, okay, it's kind of cool you did it because it was in season 1, but like, okay, I think we can kind of bury the idea. Just kind of maybe think of something new that you can like riff off of and everyone can be super excited about. But yeah, it was a cool scene overall. Like, it only took me a couple seconds to realize, okay, here it is. Here's that hallway scene. And then you kind of start analyzing it more, so it's not really a surprise. But that chain whip was super awesome. And not only was the scene cool, but it preceded that really intense scene on the roof with the Punisher, which I think is going to be one of the most iconic scenes in the show this season, because, I mean, it was nearly panel by panel from the comics.
Right, and that's all in the first episode. That one, that fight was in the first episode alone. And I guess it carried into the second one, or am I thinking of another one?
It's definitely within the first 4 episodes. It's really hard to remember since it's all a blur.
Are you talking about the one where he gets chained to the roof?
Exactly.
Okay, that one's later. I was thinking the first one where he meets him for the first time, and I'm like, They didn't pull any punches. They gave you the Punisher and Daredevil fighting in the first episode.
Oh yeah, and I was definitely impressed with that notion, just because I thought like the Punisher was going to be a build up. We might get him in season 3 or 4, and honestly, I wasn't really sure who was going to be the big bad guy. I knew the Hand and Elektra were going to pop up, but I wasn't sure how integral they were going to be to the story later on. So we didn't
have a kingpin, so to speak, that was very blatantly advertised to us.
Exactly. So yeah, when they're fucking fighting on the roof just right away, and like Frank Castle is like trading punches with them, I was like, oh yeah, this is awesome. Like, Frank will hold his own. He's basically like a hero. Like, I mean, not like a hero. He's basically like a superpowered dude. So yeah, right. And that was awesome. Then he shoots him in the head, and it ends with bang. But yeah, that all leads him to being chained on the roof. And like, I really loved it when they were just talking back and forth and getting to know each other, and he was calling him Red. It's like I just felt like I was in the comic book.
Yeah, it's really great. The banter between them is all great. But I want to go back to the weapon. We talked about the chain whip, right? And I want to mention 2 different sets of weapons that kind of showed up here. Daredevil finally got his billy club with the rope and grappling hook and all the special fun stuff there at the end of the show. Oh
yeah, and that was a fun nerd moment.
Courtesy of Melvin Potter, the aka Gladiator, the guy who made the outfit, really had an expanded role in this. Only shown up 2 or 3 times, but still being an integral part of Daredevil, kind of being his, not weapons maker, but like he fixed his armor after it got cracked. He made Elektra's outfit for her, and that moment, he was just because he's like, I made it for you because you're doing the right thing. It was a touching moment in the midst of all this other activity going on in the show.
Yeah, Melvin Potter is really the Easter egg engineer. Every time we go to his shop, there's always something new there. I don't remember if it was season 1 or season 2, but before we got on the show, we were talking about the stilt legs.
Yeah, it's actually in season 2. It's in both seasons. You can there's a Marvel released a 360 video of his workshop, and they're in season 2 and season 1.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm kind of like, because we know that he's supposed to be the hero Gladiator, and I'm curious if it's ever going to go beyond just Easter egg. He revealed a little bit of his own suit that he made for himself. I'm wondering if he's ever going to step out onto the streets and fight side by side with Daredevil. it's hard for me to imagine his character being super integral to season 3 in any way. Like, I almost imagine maybe just one episode where Melvin's out there and like saves him with his like saw blades or something like that. But I think that's kind of.
I think Defenders. I think he's going to be Daredevil's going to need something more than a billy club to take on whatever they fight in the Defenders.
Well, maybe. So I just kind of like how his kind of his identity is just kind of slowly being stretched out. It's fun. You know, every time we see Melvin, I'm always just on the lookout to see what Daredevil's going to get next. But yeah, that billy club was awesome. I was really curious if he was ever going to get it, just because I love the way the cord and the grappling hook is drawn in the comic books. You know, usually it's always awesome panels where Daredevil's midair and he's literally surrounded by the cable, and it just looks like he's just within like a web, almost like he's kind of a Spider-Man-esque character. And he swings around Hell's Kitchen almost like Spider-Man would. So I'm always curious, like, I just don't think that's going to translate well to the show. But they gave us one moment where he swung from the billy club, and I think that was enough to go like, okay, he can use it to traverse, but we're not going to be getting it like as transitions from him getting to one side of the city to the other.
Yeah, and it was really, like, I guess, when you watch the show and he throws his old weapons and then he has to go pick them up, like they really showed them picking him up every time he went and threw them.
Yeah,
and like he's gonna just be that much more cooler this time around with that. Whenever he eventually brings it to the Defenders in seasons beyond this, which I can almost guarantee there'll be more seasons. Like, that was so fantastic. I need to see more Daredevil.
Yeah, and I believe when he was fighting Nobu at the very end, I think he was using the clubs as like nunchucks, and that was super cool. I was just like, okay, this show has nunchucks, it has ninjas, it has superheroes, it has like the Punisher with big guns. Like, this season just had everything I wanted.
It did. And that brings me to my next thing. Elektra's size, she kind of gained those organically, and that was really interesting. Because she killed a guy, the Frenchman pulled the size on her. She killed him with it, and then just kind of carried those the rest of the season, since that kind of took place over the next day or two. And that was really cool to see her gain those naturally, rather than just like, oh, I've always trained with these, or some quick explanation, you know, that she's always had them.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good transition where we can kind of talk, you know, about the new characters that we got this season. You know, we got Elektra and Frank Castle, and man, they nailed it. The whole time I'm watching this season, I'm thinking, last season I said we are never going to get a better Daredevil than we're getting right now. I don't care if 10 years down the line this show is over and then it gets rebooted into a movie. We're never going to get a better Daredevil. And I'm looking at Elektra and I'm looking at the Punisher. I'm like, we're never getting a better Punisher than this. We're never getting a better Elektra than this. And that's good. That's just me saying their characters are so overwhelmingly amazing that I just can't imagine them being any better.
So for me, I thought John Bernthal just played himself mostly. I mean, I don't mean that as a bad thing, but like, compared to his Walking Dead role, it felt very similar. But I don't mean that as a bad thing at all. Like, because he was very, like, everyone had an arc in the season. We look at Matt Murdock. You know, I mean, at one point he was willing to kill at one point to solve this issue. Elektra, you know, came in as like, hey, I need your help, and then she's like, well, I want to kill everybody, but now I'm going to save you, kind of deal. That was great. But the way Frank Castle came in and his arc throughout the whole thing, like, he didn't need redemption. He didn't want redemption. He wanted to be the Punisher, and they let him do it. Like, and that's what I really like about him. Like, he came in killing people, and then he's like, I did it. I'll do it again. I'm not gonna try to become the good guy. But
yeah, I just liked it because he came in very, very strong with his own motivations, and he just didn't really care who got in the way. I mean, like, the Devil of Hell's Kitchen is a big character in this universe, and when people come across him, it's a big deal, and he's just like, get the fuck out of my way. I got some people that I need to kill because they killed my family. You are literally just in my way right now. So I really liked that he just had his own story that he needed to follow through with, and we were kind of along for the ride whenever he ran into our characters. So, yeah, and yeah, he did kind of seem a little bit like Shane from The Walking Dead, but I think that just means like the casting was just executed very, very well. just watching him, his intensity just fit the role very, very well. We've gotten a very, very mixed bag of Punishers in live action, so it's definitely kind of strange to go like, oh, how is Frank Castle supposed to be, live action, and this is how he's supposed to be. Like you get him very mentally unstable, and then I like how as the season progresses, he really kind of starts getting his shit together, basically. He's not a hero at the very end, but he's definitely just getting over the death of his family. He's starting to realize that, like...
He's the anti-hero that they need.
Yeah. He's kind of, at the end of the show, he's kind of closed that chapter, as much as he could have. So now he kind of has to think like, oh, what do I do now with my life? So I'm really curious what happens to the Punisher in the future. Like, is he going to pop up in season 3 of Daredevil? Is he going to pop up in the Defenders? Even though I'm saying he's such an amazing character, it's really hard for me to imagine a 13-episode season just for the Punisher. I don't know. What do you think? Do you think he could possibly hold down his own show?
I don't think so, and I think that's true for all of these characters. All of these characters in any Netflix show work better as an ensemble, and Daredevil season 2 has proved that it only got better the more they didn't throw everything in there, but they added one or two, and that really made the show that much better. Mm-hmm. And because in Daredevil season 1, we lost steam at the end there, like between episodes 10 and 13, it kind of slowed down before that big fight. And this one, it didn't slow down at all. Like, there was nothing, like, no time was wasted as they bounce from character to character trying to tell the story of how they evolve. Mm-hmm. So I don't think he could hold his own, no. But I do enjoy him. The only thing I felt the last episode kind of wasted, like, a send-off or, like, where he was going. Because he did shoot the ninjas for Daredevil, which was awesome. I totally was rooting for him to come out of there. But I was hoping he was going to use that minigun and mow him down.
Exactly, and that's what I kept saying too, because, like, I don't necessarily know how iconic the minigun is to the Punisher. I think maybe just large guns are more iconic with him, but when he's in that shack and that camera lingers on that big-ass gun, we think he's going to be using that big-ass gun. So
he carried it out of his house. When he was walking away from his house, like, he had it. You don't show us a minigun and not fire it.
Yeah,
like you fire that minigun.
So it almost makes me think that maybe at one point he was supposed to use it, because honestly, that's what I was expecting too. I was expecting a large wall of ninjas to be bearing down on Daredevil, and he basically had no hope, and then just a mowing down of them.
Yeah,
and I feel like maybe that was originally in the script or something, and then the creators decided maybe that's not exactly the story we want to tell. So it was cool that he was there helping out Daredevil, but I was really hoping for going out with more of a bang. Yeah. So.
Well, I think if anything is anything, we know Marvel listens to us and they'll go forward and do that. So that's the new characters. Let's talk about the recurring characters, which I thought were really great additions as well.
Well, before we get into that, I want to touch a little bit on Elektra.
Go. Oh, sorry. Well, yes. Sorry, I don't mean to cut over Elektra. She was really important for a lot of this.
Yeah, I really loved how she came in and really stole basically Matt's mind. He was already split up between his life as Daredevil and life as a lawyer, and he wasn't managing it very, very well, but he was at least there. But then when you bring Elektra into the mix, like, everything just blows up. I really enjoyed the flashbacks to when Matt was younger and he was dating Elektra, just because Matt is a very no-nonsense type of guy. He's out there to get the job done, to make sure he makes money for his law firm, to make sure he puts criminals down. He basically doesn't have any time for a love life. So I was always wondering, like, how did he ever fall in love with Elektra? It doesn't really make any sense. But when we got those flashbacks, like, they made it really organic. It didn't feel like a forced relationship. So and then they started fighting each other in the boxing ring and everything. I was like, okay, this is actually working really, really well for me. So I love that they showed their connection, and then how it was severed so violently, which definitely transcends through the whole season, because it's a very, very heavy theme of Daredevil and not killing people. And that's basically what separated him and Elektra at the very beginning.
Right, and the thing about Elektra is, I guess, she was put there in Matt's life for a mission, and it kind of, she fell for him instead. And I think I like how everything comes back to the chased and stick, because I think that's going to be very pertinent in Iron Fist, I believe. But that there's a bigger thing to all this. Like Daredevil isn't just like someone who just decided to go do it, and then all of a sudden all these other things pop up. Like there have always been these larger organizations moving, and Daredevil was trained to be a weapon of one of them. And that's kind of why he's caught up in all this. And same with Elektra. I really like her. I don't buy her as Greek. She seems more of an Asian descent than a Greek descent, especially the younger version.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was thinking too. But at the same time, I was just like, I don't think I know enough about the Greek culture to at all be judging.
That's all you need to know.
I mean, the only thing I really know about Greek is like tzatziki sauce, and I really like that. And I'm really not trying to be offensive to Greek people. I was just like, I'm just very ignorant. I don't really know much about the culture. So I guess that kind of worked well on my end, where I was just like, I guess she could be Greek. I don't really know. Like maybe Greek is mixed with a lot of other cultures over there. But yeah, I didn't necessarily buy it either.
It doesn't hinder the show by any means.
Not at all. Not in any way.
But I really like her. And I really like, again, she was great. There's hard to say. I mean, I saw her death coming a mile away, and I saw her being put into the resurrection chamber a mile away. Because she is what they call the Black Sky, but they kind of really don't explain what the Black Sky can do that's special.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of going to go into more of the broader story elements of the story, where I liked how we kind of start tiptoeing into the mythical fantasy realm of Marvel in this season of Daredevil. I'm talking about this a lot just because I'm really waiting for Doctor Strange to really fully launch us into it. And I really like how Daredevil himself was not eager to believe it, just kind of like how the audience might not be, because we haven't been introduced to that stuff in Marvel yet. And actually, it never comes up, and it never really matters. I mean, the closest thing that we get to proving that kind of magic exists is Nobu just won't die, but it's never really very obvious. You know, we can kind of imagine someone being set on fire and burning could still be alive, but obviously he should be charred a lot more. He should be like third-degree burns from head to toe. Nobu just kind of like his neck was fused to his chin. So you're kind of just like, well, okay.
But then they delve into it in the hospital as well a little bit. I guess the autopsy, the emptied bodies that have been resurrected.
Yeah, but like there's never really solid evidence. So you're always kind of a little skeptical because like we never saw the dead bodies like twitch a finger. Like that's such a cliche thing to do, and I'm glad they didn't do it, but like, you know, where you linger away and like the finger wiggles or something like that. So we never got that. So the whole time you're wondering like, oh, is this real? Is Stick just really a crazy old man who's just fighting this war that doesn't exist? And you can kind of infer that there's definitely something there. And I kind of like that. We never really got proof, and Matt never really got proof himself.
Yeah, and I think that's another point at the end when Nobu falls off the roof and stands up, kind of like, oh, that didn't hurt, I'm gonna live. And then Stick kills him ultimately. Like, like they didn't. It's alluded to, but not given blatantly. So yeah, totally. Really, really, really enjoyed that. And Elektra added a lot to the show, I think. I mean, I like Karen Page as a love interest, but I don't. I think Elektra was more of the tragic thing that had to happen to Matt.
So you wanted to talk about some of the recurring characters.
Yes. So I did not. I mean, I knew Wilson Fisk was going to be in the show. I did not expect him the last 2 episodes in the show.
Oh yeah.
And to see that it hurt me to see that he was able to regain a lot of his power back in the prison. But at the same time, that Daredevil responded to that later, saying, you know, like, my methods don't work. Like, they're obviously not working.
Yeah, and that toys with the idea of like, oh, should I be killing these people? But I do like how the Kingpin is still very calculated. You know, he can easily escape prison, you know, but he's waiting for it because he wants to be a free man when he escapes prison. He wants to basically take the city in his fists for himself. So, yeah, I like that. You know, he's very calculating. But yeah, I thought maybe he took control of the prison a little too much. Like, I liked how he just kind of had one guard in his pocket, but like he owned the entire staff Like, and that's a little hard for me to believe that he had all of those guys on payroll. Like, it's not hard for me to believe that he didn't have the money. It's just hard for me to believe that every single person that works in that prison is crooked, but
right.
You know, I got over it just because, like, well, Kingpin is still behind bars. He's not on the street, so we don't really have to be too concerned with him at this moment.
Yeah, so that was great to see him. Stick, again, got more than just a flashback episode, which was really cool. He carried off, I think, 4 or 5 episodes he was in, which was really awesome to see. A couple of cameos. We got Jerry Hogarth from Jessica Jones hiring Foggy at the end. That's going to lead into something special, I think. I'm trying to think of who else was in there. I can't think of off the top of my head.
We definitely had other drops to Jessica Jones. Her name was actually said by
that's right.
Foggy's girlfriend, ex-girlfriend, lawyer friend.
Yep.
So we had some of that. I just like how they're not.
Foggy was really good this time around, but I think he was wasted in the second half. Once the trial was kind of over, he just kind of meandered about in the second half. But Karen got a stronger story, I felt. Although she was always the damsel in distress.
I thought
she was in like the officer said, she's in every shitstorm that hit New York.
And that's one thing that I was about to say. It was a little too coincidental that she was always in harm's way, but she was a very strong character, so I was able to look over that a little bit. But yeah, I mean, just kind of like jumping around right now because I'm just trying to think of because so much happened in this season. Like you said, there was no lulls in it. You got action and you got intrigue in every episode. And one thing that pops into my head was, we might have been a little let down by the hallway fight with the bikers, but man, they definitely made up for it in the prison hallway fight.
Yeah, when Punisher taking on the I guess the inmates that he was locked in with.
Yeah, and it was so crazy because I didn't know what was going to happen, and that was the best part of the scene. I was just like, oh, he's going to get his ass kicked. There's no way he can fight all of those people. And when you think about prisoners, you think about the toughest of the tough guys. So you're thinking like, oh, he's going to get creamed. He's locked in there. He's screwed. I was thinking about Watchmen.
Right, with
Rorschach, yeah. And I was thinking, well, that was a little bit more of a fantastical type of show, like of movie, so we could believe that Rorschach could like fight all those people. And then he had the backup show up later. So I was thinking, oh man, he's screwed. There's no way he's gonna fight all these people. Like, oh, they're probably gonna cut the camera just before he runs into that crowd, and then we're gonna come back later and see the aftermath. And no, he dove right in there and killed every single one of them. And I thought that was just, it was so visceral. I mean, it was intense. I didn't think he was gonna do it, and he did it, and it seemed logical. And then I was just waiting to see what was gonna happen afterwards, and they had to bring in all of those like super decked out security guards with the gear just to take on this one man. And I really liked it when we had moments to see that the Punisher really is a superhero. He might just be a human, or sorry, I keep saying superhero, superhuman, superpowers. It was just amazing. I just loved how they did it, and that scene was crazy intense and bloody, and he's an animal.
Yeah, there was I think that goes back to what I want to talk about here, kind of before we wrap it up. The look and feel of the show. I think the cinematography was done better this time around, with the fight scenes being choreographed much better, since there's more going on. But they didn't pull any punches on the blood and the gore and other things that kind of needed to happen. Like, since I watched the last episodes recently, and they were shoving sticks up, or popsicle stick looking things up Sticks' fingernails.
Oh yeah, that was hard to watch.
Chopping people's veins to drain their blood, and bullets being ripped through people, stuff like that, and so on and so forth. There was a wave of destruction on the city. Like you could feel it. That Hell's Kitchen was under fire from swords and bullets, and it was. Sometimes I had to look away, and that was really. I applaud them for going the full distance and not pulling back on some of those scenes.
Yeah, and I really like the gravity of the situation when they found that big hole in the ground. It just made things really intense. that like, oh, things of this scale, like that. I think it was the scale, just shock of it. It's just like, wow, even though it was literally just a hole, it was still really intense to see something that grandiose and usually a very small and compact story. So like we said, this looked and felt like the same, or if not even better than season 1, and we love season 1, so they did a great job. And plus, this show changed hands with showrunners.
Yes.
I'm sure the writers' room got a couple new people. Some other people probably found some other gigs. So yeah, they did a very good job being consistent and elevating it.
I think one thing I want to point out on the look of it is that they avoided neon lights a lot more than they did. The first season was a lot of neon, and they avoided that quite a bit. And this time it went darker, more shadows, more again more ninja looking kind of season. And I think what really, I guess, bothered me at the end, and maybe because some things felt pretty final. Like, we're closing up our tab at Josie's. I'm like,
yeah, well, I think
why are you doing that? Like, I want to know more. Like, it didn't like affect the show. I'm like, why? Where's season 3 now? Like, why?
Yeah.
Why can I not see why are they closing at Josie's? Like, what's going to happen to these people?
Yeah, I think this is a good chance. I was kind of waiting for the end. I think let's kind of like bring up our biggest gripes with the show, because we've basically been praising it for a while now.
Yeah,
and it is really great. But there were some things that kind of bugged me, so I kind of wanted to more know how you felt about them. So the first one was, I thought Karen Page's connection with Frank Castle at the very beginning was pretty weak. Like her main motivation to kind of search down Frank Castle and getting to the thick of it and understand what's going on with him, basically was just she wanted justice for him, is what it seemed like. And it didn't really seem like it made sense for her to hunt down all of this stuff to help him. Like later on, as she got to know him a little bit more and learn more about the intensity of what happened to his family, it made more sense for her to want to help. But they kept alluding to how she shot and killed Wesley in season 1, but I kind of thought that might come up a little bit more directly at some point in the season, and I thought maybe she would be like, oh, I killed somebody before. Frank has killed somebody before. I was expecting that connection to get a little stronger, and it never really did. So I kind of just had to get over the fact of just like, oh, Karen needs something to do this season, and it's going to be helping out Frank. So I thought it could have done a little bit more eloquently at the very beginning.
I didn't think that hard about it, because to me, Karen she searches for trouble, is what it seems like. Kind of like the way she did in the first season. Like, she could have kept her mouth shut, but when she sees something, like, she just digs into it. And honestly, if I thought anyone was going to die this season, it was going to be her. To be honest, at the beginning. She didn't. She made it through, surprisingly enough. But, I mean, I can see how she's the instigator of a lot of problems. And, again, in the middle of all the shitstorm, which I found way too convenient for her. So, yes, yeah. I agree to an extent, but maybe on the other side than you do.
I do have to say, though, it was very organic for her to join the newspaper. I kind of felt like that's really where she's supposed to be, because it never really made sense for her to be working in the law office exactly, because, you know, her job description was kind of just assistant, and she very much wanted to be like a lawyer and helping people. And I felt like maybe her like jurisdiction was kind of overreaching. Like, okay, like I don't think she would necessarily be in this meeting. I don't think she would necessarily be doing exactly what Matt and Foggy are doing right now. But when she got into the paper, it felt totally organic. That's exactly what her character should be doing. She's trying to hunt down the truth. And she went in there really, really well, because she took over Ben's old office. She was really attached to Ben. I thought that was really sentimental and sweet, you know. And I don't remember the guy's name who ran the paper. But I liked his character because he was kind of wanted to make up for his past mistakes with Ben, and he thought bringing in Karen was a good idea. So I thought that went really, really well. So it was kind of like something that I didn't like so much really led into something that I did enjoy.
Yeah, totally. I agree. The newspaper and that guy, I believe his name's, I think, is it Stan Gibson, maybe? Or
oh, I don't know. I don't even remember.
Yeah, either way. No, I think Stan was the police guy. Whoever runs the newspaper was really awesome. That was a good. You're right. It's very organic. Felt natural.
Yeah.
But I think yes. So go on. I'm sorry. I don't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
So and then I want to say there was 3 things I was going to point out, but I can only think of one other right now. So I guess the other one that wasn't that big of a deal, and I got over it just while talking about the show. But I really, really liked how big adversaries the Hand was when they first popped up. I believe they first popped up when they were looking over that big old hole and some shurikens start flying out, and then they're really getting their ass kicked by these just a couple of hand ninjas, because these hand ninjas have been training their whole lives to fight. They can silence their heartbeats. Like, basically, Daredevil can't even see them. He has to track the movement of their weapons, and they barely make it out of there, basically. Stick has to show up and save them, and then they're chasing them down in that really old, like, jalopy car, which was kind of cool because I like the feel of that car. And so, like, I felt like, man, these hand ninjas, they are no fucking joke. They can kick ass. They are deadly. They are out to kill, and they hide in the shadows, and we don't know anything about them. And then as the show progressed on, the hand ninjas seemed to get a little less deadly. I felt like they could take them out and dispatch them a lot easier and a lot quicker. And I guess you could say, like, oh, they learned how they fight, and, you know, Daredevil and Elektra got a little bit more in sync. But at times it felt like they were just, like, throwing waves of ninjas at them just to, like, give them something to do until they moved on to the next scene. So I was kind of hoping maybe, like, the deadliness would have ramped up. Like, maybe this is too cliche, but maybe, like, get a big bulking ninja with a big old, like, club or something that's just, like, 8 foot tall, you know, like, build up to, like, a boss fight ninja almost, I was thinking. So I was hoping for something like that.
Well, they kind of did with Nobu again.
Yeah, they did, but we had seen Nobu already, and then plus without his, like, mask on or anything.
He didn't look nearly as intimidating, yeah.
Yeah, so I was hoping for a little bit more ramp up with the ninja, and I guess this kind of goes into my third thing, is I know they're world building right now, and they're definitely building up to a bigger threat for the Defenders, but it did felt like we kind of got more of a build up without a payoff again, kind of what happened in season 1. Like, in season 1, it did kind of felt just like a tidbit, you know, like, oh, you can kind of see Stick talking to the leader of the chase there, Stone. You think it's Stone, you assume it's Stone. And we're like, ooh, we're going to get a little bit of that in season 2. Like, that's going to be great. You know, we didn't really get to see Stone. We got this build-up that kind of led to the resolution was basically just throwing Nobu off the roof. And then we just assumed that the ninjas were going to go away and they weren't going to be a threat to the city anymore. So I was kind of hoping for a more resolution there. Like, you know, something a little bit more concrete. And the only thing that we got was Stick killing Nobu. You know, Daredevil didn't see Nobu get killed by Stick, so we don't really know. So that was one thing. I was just hoping for a little bit of a tighter resolution there with that storyline. I know it's going to continue on in the Defenders, so I'm looking forward to seeing that. But I was hoping for a little more finalized there. But.
It's a real, like, this show, I imagine a string, and at the end, a couple things were not tied up neatly, and I guess that would be one of them. The other thing, I probably my biggest complaint is Claire Temple, played by Rosario Dawson. Like, she quit her job, but that was it. That's the last we saw of her. Like, where did she go? What does she do now? How is she going to help these people going forward? We kind of see her life kind of devolve as she gets caught up in all these superheroes and so on and so forth. And I think there's just some people who just didn't, like, the Punisher didn't get a good, like, the ending was really hard to nail down for a lot of these people. Like, yeah, we saw some very life-changing moments, but there wasn't like a, okay, and then this is what they're doing in credits. But yeah, but I you know, again, on the whole, this was a much tighter show than the first season, and I think a lot of those things will be answered because they tend to answer the whatever happened in the previous season, as we've now seen after one extra season.
Yeah, but I mean, those are just some of the little things that they didn't really drag on me too much, but overall, I thought the season was great, just as good as the first one, if not even a little bit better at points. Sometimes, like, maybe slightly a little bit lower, but overall, this was just great. Another great outing for Daredevil, another great success for Netflix. We're recording 2 spoiler casts today. We're recording Daredevil and Batman Superman. And I definitely wanted to talk about Daredevil first, just because I enjoyed it so much. And I wanted to start the day off well. If that's any hint of what we're going to be talking about next.
Oh, you shouldn't have said anything. But either way, yeah, I think on the whole we give our approval to Daredevil. If you guys want to talk over anything, spoilers, secrets, questions, reach out to us. Let us know. We're available. I think one thing at the end I really enjoyed, Frank grabbed a CD called Micro, and in the comic books, his helper who helps him build all the weapons is Microchip. And I think this might be an illusion that this CD has blueprints and ways to build weapons that he needs, or maybe secret bases he could use, like his general had in his like garage. So I'm really excited to see where that goes. I want to see all the characters come back. It's going to be, I think, seeing Elektra come back as being revived back to life will be interesting. And I want confirmation. Where's Daredevil season 3? When is it going to come out? Because we know we need to get it. And how will it tie into the Defenders? So
exactly. So, Chris, if people wanted to follow you, you write reviews on this stuff early. If they want to get to your thoughts sooner, where can they find that stuff?
Yes, you can find me at Twitter at Valdan, VALDAN, but I write all my stuff on comicui.com. You can find us on Facebook or just go to comicui.com. That's where I posted stuff. I don't have a Daredevil review yet, but I'm hoping to have one by Monday or Tuesday because it's hard to compact 13 episodes into something very coherent, as you can tell, for us.
Exactly.
What about you, Mike? In case you decide to draw some Daredevil artwork or anything like that, where can they find that at?
Well, they can follow me at Mike Royer Design on Twitter and Instagram. And as always, you can read my webcomics at picklecomics.com. But what I think I want everybody else to know is that, please, as always, you can visit superheroslate.com. That is the best place to find all the avenues we're at on the show. Sorry, I got a cough.
Oh, way to ruin the closing. Way to ruin it.
I was trying to tie it up all nicely. But basically, what I'm trying to say is we're on iTunes, YouTube, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Tumblr, email, Facebook, Twitter. We're all over the place. There's no way that you can't connect to our show. And if you want to catch other recordings of me coughing, I was also sick a couple weeks ago on some other episodes. So I'm slowly getting better. But basically, that's where you can find all of our show. If you're a fan of the show, head on over to iTunes and leave us a review. Help us pop up in some fresh eyes. And if you're a super fan of the show, share it with a friend. Share the love. And we got another spoilercast to record. It's a busy day. Let's get into it.
Yes, we'll see you guys later.
All right, bye, everybody. Bye.
Thanks for listening, and don't forget to subscribe.